Despite all the controversy and BS, YouTube is a wonderful source of entertainment. I've been consistently making videos of my own for almost 5 years, and I've been following channels like JWits and Team 4-Star for even longer than that. More recently, however, my attention has gradually expanded to incorporate more informative, analytical content that has expanded my perspective. In the past, I've named people like Digibro, Mother's Basement, Super Eyepatch Wolf, and the Pedantic Romantic as sources of inspiration for this channel, but there's one man who I haven't mentioned that predates all of those guys. I've stated before that the Asterisk War sucks is one of my favorite things on the internet, but even that falls short of this man's ultimate creation. Yes, friends, I'm here to discuss that very series, so grab your scissors, knives, magnifying glasses, and crack open those manga volumes. Today, we take a look at why you should watch MistareFusion, a Dragon Ball Dissection dissection. Dragon Ball is an iconic series. If you're an anime fan, you've probably watched at least one episode of Dragon Ball. For many of us, Dragon Ball was the gateway into anime, along with other shows like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and Naruto. Because the show is so ingrained in the anime culture, however, taking a critical lens to the material can be quite difficult. Another obstacle in accurately judging the series is the sheer length of it. While it definitely isn't the longest running manga, there's enough of a story to have both an abundance of moments that I absolutely adore and an abundance of moments that I undeniably detest. I personally find it hard to rank Dragon Ball into my list of favorite anime, simply because of how much my opinions vary throughout the story. For every incredible action scene is a cheap power-up. The story is filled with fun, unique characters, but most lack any staying power due to Toriyama's inability to keep them relevant. It might sound like I loathe the show, but I actually love it. Dragon Ball might seem like just another dumb shonen battle series, but there's actually a lot to appreciate about it from a critical standpoint. I feel like I'd have to spend hours analyzing the show to appropriately convey my thoughts in the most coherent way possible, and even then, I'd run the risk of my personal opinions completely overshadowing my already subjective analysis. This is where MistareFusion excels. The purpose of his Dragon Ball dissection is threefold. He chronicles the events of the manga, provides an analytical critique of the material, and reflects on his personal opinions towards said developments. With regards to the first, Lance does a fantastic job at casting his knowledge of the later material aside to view the story as if it was just being published in 1984's Weekly Shonen Jump all over again. He still shows the perspective of how each new development could or would affect the story in the long run, but he does this without sacrificing the face value of each individual chapter. This is crucial, because Toriyama Akira wrote the majority of Dragon Ball on the fly. His initial plan was to write a self-contained story over the course of a year, but the Dragon Ball manga wouldn't reach a conclusion until 1995, nearly 11 years after its first chapter was published. While that's an incredible feat from a creator's standpoint, it's more of a detriment to the story than anything else, as Lance highlights in his videos. I think it's fascinating to watch Toriyama's funny little adventure fantasy gradually evolve to incorporate various settings, characters, philosophies, and the gradual tone shift that comes with this expanding narrative. It's a lot like Hunter x Hunter in that regard, starting out in one direction before shifting into a completely different one as things progress. Because Toriyama made everything up as he went along, you can never predict where the series could go, for better or for worse. This is the aspect of Dragon Ball that Lance can really sink his critical teeth into, though that isn't his only specialty. There are plenty of informative tidbits and quotes sprinkled in along the way from sources like the Dragon Ball Daisenshu. I especially love the first part of his analysis of the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai arc. In modern times, it's easy to gloss over the fact that Goku had to grow up as the story progressed. Goku is an adult during Dragon Ball's most popular story arcs after all. Here, however, Lance takes care to emphasize just how groundbreaking this decision was at the time. Toriyama's editor at the time, Torishima, feared that such a decision could threaten the manga's serialization. To put this into perspective, imagine if, tomorrow, Togashi Yoshihiro suddenly decided that he wanted Gon to become an adult. Everything that we cherish about the character stems from his time as a young boy. When we think of Hunter x Hunter, we think of Gon's quest to find his father, while experiencing life's hardships along the way. A coming-of-age tale isn't complete until that character grows up. Once that happens, a key component of the tale is removed, and anything that follows will carry a distinctly different vibe. Lance captures this aspect of the production and narrative process perfectly, and gives the understated matter the attention it deserves. Over the course of Dragon Ball Dissection, Lance delves into production details like that, as well as various plot holes, recycled archetypes, lazy writing decisions, and downright stupid logic that plagues the source material in its worst moments. If you want to see a snarky, cynical teardown of the show, he's got you covered.
Piccolo has some objections, but Nail assures him that his character won't intrude upon Piccolo's individuality. And I mean, how could it? He doesn't have a character to begin with.
We've only scratched the surface of Lance's cynicism. It's only a matter of time until the snark reaches maximum capacity. His work wouldn't be as interesting if that was all Lance had to offer, though. And thankfully, he does bring some genuine appreciation to the table. Lance loves Dragon Ball, even at its worst. And that's abundantly clear in the videos that he's made thus far. Part of what makes his videos so interesting, at least to me, is the unique way in which he rates the material. Calling Dragon Ball popular would be an understatement, but when most people refer to Dragon Ball, they often bring up elements from the Z anime, like Gohan, Vegeta, Frieza, Super Saiyans. Stuff like the Tenkaichi Budokai and Red Ribbon arcs are seen as just a prequel to what came later. This isn't the case for Lance. In fact, he considers most of early Dragon Ball to be the best arcs in the series. His favorite arc, the Red Ribbon Army arc, often sits at the bottom of most people's list. So I find it all the more interesting to hear him stress the strengths of that saga without ignoring the weaknesses. On the flip side, most people consider the Piccolo Daimyo arc to be the point where Dragon Ball finally started getting good. But Lance rated it the second worst arc in the series. While subjectivity is inevitable in any analysis, I never get the feeling that Lance's rankings are overly biased or unfair. He highlights the abundance of flaws in the Piccolo Daimyo arc, but he also gives praise where it's due. No stone is left unturned in any arc. Lance also toys with a sparing use of humor that usually hits its mark, though the value of comedy varies considerably depending on who you ask. The visual and audio components of his videos aren't exactly complex, but some of these jokes give him an opportunity to spice things up.
Speaking of which, it's funny that Goku assumes his son knows how to fly because he has no problem just letting him go in midair. It's very fortunate that Gohan didn't faceplant 50 feet up.
He's got a fair share of recurring gags as well, though none of these can top the recurring gag that is Yamcha. Poor dolt. I'm of the opinion that a compelling script trumps compelling visuals. But I wouldn't call Lance's editing weak. He shows exactly what he needs to show in the most appropriate way at the most appropriate time. Nothing about it is particularly inventive, but if it was, it might be more distracting than anything else. When I put on one of his videos, I like to sit back and absorb the information. But if I ignore the visuals, I feel like I'm missing a key part of the message. I like scripts that can stand on their own in a more podcast-style format, but I really like scripts that can be enhanced by good editing, even if that editing isn't fast-paced or groundbreaking. While his main focus is the manga, Lance has also created a subsection of the series called DBD TV. It's here that Lance can compare the anime adaptation to the manga, as well as analyze the various Dragon Ball and DBZ films. He takes a look at the various animation studios who worked on the TV material, inspect the different ways in which filler is incorporated into the story, and describes how the series succeeds and fails as both an adaptation and a standalone entity. It's an excellent addition to the already informative and entertaining main series, and I think it's worth as much of your time as its predecessor is. Judging by his view counts, Lance doesn't get nearly as much credit for his work as he deserves. If this video can send even just one new person his way, I feel like I'll have contributed something of value to the analysis community. I'd love to see more projects like Dragon Ball Dissection, that focus on other popular manga like Naruto or Hunter x Hunter in such great detail. Maybe I'll try to make my own similar series somewhere down the road when I can be bothered to conduct such an insane amount of research. For now, I can only hope that this video sparks a strong interest in Lance's content, and that a series like his can gain enough traction to inspire other critics to take a similar approach. If this video has piqued your interest in any way, please check out Lance's work. I'll leave a link to his introduction video on screen, as well as a link to his channel in the description. If this is somehow the first video you're seeing from me, check out my other content once you're done with Lance's, and follow me on Twitter at MathWiz97x. Until next time, keep on YouTubing.